Hey, this is Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Colt Express. This is a game that I played a while ago on the tabletop, and I found out recently that it is on Board Game Arena, and so I revisited it and realized that I haven't done a video on it. So here's what it kind of looks like in real life. Here's the tabletop version. It's a beautiful 3D construction. It's a train heist. You are robbing a train as the train is moving, and there are two levels to the train, multiple cars to the train, and this is a 3D cardboard construct. It looks really, really cool on the table. The Board Game Arena version also kind of conveys the 3D aspect of it. It gets the job done. It isn't quite what it is on the tabletop, but the implementation is solid, and I like how they added kind of the 3D meeples, the 3D look of it. I have a couple different mechanisms in this game that I really, really appreciate. And the core construct is that you are playing a card from your hand, typically, well, it could be face down, it could be face up on a common pile, and then you're flipping that pile over and then activating all the different actions that all the players have added to that pile, and they get to sometimes make a choice with the pawn. They have one pawn that they're controlling on the train, and sometimes not make a choice. Sometimes it's just the card says go up one level and you have to go up one level, that type of thing. So it's kind of a shared programming game, competitive programming game. One thing that's really cool about this is that you play all these cards to this pile, and that's usually when you're making most of the choices, and then you can kind of just sit back and watch this little cinematic scene play out as you reveal all these cards and all these different things happen. So it's kind of nice to be able to have a game where you kind of wind it up and then watch it play out based on how you and the other players have programmed all these different workers to move around the train. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if I've seen that in too many other games. It kind of happens in other programming games, but usually there's a lot of other choices that you make as you're revealing the things. Like in Mechs versus Minions, there's still choices that you can make. There's some choices, but it is kind of neat just to wind it up and watch it play out. So I really like that. I also really like how the hand management works in Colt Express. Basically, you were given a hand of cards, and then on your turn you were playing one of those cards to this common pile that I described. Or, instead of playing a card, you can draw 3 cards. You can add 3 more cards to your hand. An action that you rarely take, but you can take it if there isn't a card that really benefits you at that very moment. And then at the end of each round, I believe there are 4 or 5 rounds, you add more cards to your hand. It's very simple hand management, but it has kind of the feel of deck building, even though you're not actually building that deck, in that you're playing a card and saving some cards for the next turn, the next round. Typically the next round, because you're holding over some cards and then getting more to your hand. So there might be a strategy that you're waiting to pull off, and so you might want to hold some cards back to pull off that specific action. So I kind of like, it's basic hand management, but it works really well. I like how it works in Colt Express. The last thing, and probably my favorite mechanism in Colt Express, is how each of the rounds has a unique random card paired with it. And you can kind of see it here. Let's see if you can see that card. It's a little blurry in this video here. But every round, all players share one of these cards. And this card tells you how many cards each players are playing from their hand that round, and whether those cards are face up or face down, which is thematically tied to, like, in this card, you can kind of see one of those squares is blacked out. That means you're in a tunnel right now, and so you can't see what other players are planning to do, and so during that turn of the round, all players play their cards face down, so you don't know what other players are planning. Otherwise, you're typically playing face up, so you can kind of see what other players are aiming to do. But there are other little tweaks on that too. Sometimes you have to play 2 cards at once. You play 2 cards in a row. And this also varies the length of the round. Sometimes it's just 2 cards or 3 cards or 4 cards. It really depends. This adds a really nice variation from round to round, and it adds a little bit to that cinematic feel that I mentioned at the beginning, because they are connected thematically to the thematics of the game. And it adds this nice little spice, this nice little variation that would otherwise without that the game would feel a little samey, even though you are randomly drawing cards from your deck. So there is some variation there. You don't control what other players do. But I really like that. It's a really nice little twist that they thought to add. I'm not even sure if this is included in the core game or if it's an expansion that just happened to be on Board Game Arena. I don't remember that particular aspect from the first time I played. And also, I just like how it steers players through the rounds. You don't have to remember that the round is 3 turns or 2 turns. The card always tells you. So it acts as a guide too. Just a really clever round variation mechanism and kind of a reference for all players to remember what they're doing that round. So yeah, those are my favorite mechanisms in Colt Express. If you have a favorite mechanism in the game that you'd like to talk about in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or if these mechanisms remind you of another game, whether it's a programming game, a hand management game, or a game that has something that changes things up from round to round just a little bit, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.